we're solving two main problems: is content ownership for the long term for the listener, and content monetization for the creators. So for creators, we're talking about artists, filmmakers, producers, writers, and all of those kind of people. So that's and also publishers for books, so to speak, in the near future. So that's what we are doing. But in the meantime, we are focusing on pushing our flagship product, as I said, which is Vwaza Music, which works by ensuring that artists are able to make money off their music through direct sales instead of paid streams. So that's how Vwaza Music works, and it's easy to sign up. For anyone else who's going to be watching this recording later, just head over to vwaza.com and sign up, and you'll be able to distribute your music for free. And we don't charge you anything. We only make money when you make money. That's it. And you get 80% of the proceedings when you start selling money. I also want to clarify for the person listening or like watching this in the near future that this is not a get rich quick scheme where some people feel like they can just sign up today and start earning money. It's also a way that you have to invest yourself in making sure that you can make money. So it's not like you can just join Vwaza.com right now and start, people will be paying for your music. They have to know you, you have to build your audience. And, we are there to help you, of course, but it's also more on you. And I believe that Vwaza is going to help you understand who are your true fans, in the thousands and thousands of people that listen to your music if you transition to our platform. So yeah, this is not a way to get rich today, but it's a way to make money today. And if you have fans who are willing to pay for your music, then this is the platform to help you do that. And eventually, we're going to help you to make money all over the world. So that's it. Thank you, Kim, for having me.
Thank you, Joel, so much. I think we can dive into the session. Welcome, everybody. Welcome back to another Vwaza session. Welcome, Ta. Let's get into it. Please introduce yourself for those who might just be watching this episode and not the one before.
Thank you for having me. Hi, everyone. My name is Nthangwanika Kondowe. You can call me Nta. I am founder and COO of NewWave Group, which is a music curation, distribution, and publishing company. I am also an executive assistant for a US NGO called Maloto. We work to feed, educate, and empower our community through Mzuzu International Academy, P2 Kitchen, and P2 CBL.
Awesome. That was very short and sweet. So to kick things off, let's talk about music licensing. That's also an aspect that NewWave works with. Could you explain to us why every artist, producer, or even songwriter in Malawi needs to understand what music licensing means and how it relates to music publishing?
So music licensing essentially is giving someone permission to use your music in exchange for money, right? I think you've seen a lot of stories or cases where, let's say, artists come out and say, this person, made a cover to my song and I didn't even know about it. And, they go complain to Kosoma. Or more recently, Jetu had her song on DSTV in an advert and had no idea how the song got there. So that's what licensing is about. It's what is the process that you've put in place to ensure that if people want to use your work, they ask for your permission or they have that permission. So it's a wide range of, licenses that are out there. Like Kosoma itself has a license to use our music when obtain a license. Bars have to obtain a license. Restaurants, if they're playing music, have to obtain a license. We have a license as NewWave, and then I'm sure there's a license. So basically anything to do with somebody else's art requires you to have that license, and your music licensed is your responsibility. Because if you don't do that, even say in Jetu's case, for example, maybe because it was in SA, so the Kosoma in SA is SAMRO, for example, they would say, well, you're not registered with us, so we can't give you the royalties for this thing and whatever. So those are some of the issues where you have to be as intentional as possible so that if that work is used somewhere, then you get that money. And publishing ties into licensing in the sense that it stipulates who gets that money. So if you worked with certain people on the recipe of the song and they are not included, and then, for example, that song gets used in a blockbuster movie and you get paid out like serious money, those people are going to come for you because it's like, hey, how come you're the only one who got a cut from this? And it's because you did your publishing wrong. So it's stuff like that where you just kind of always have to be aware. If you worked on a project, ensure that the publishing was done right, you're credited accordingly, so that if the music gets licensed for use and it earns royalties, then you're able to get a payout from that.
Question on the Jetu issue. Do you know how that ended up going? Or in this case, how would NewWave handle this kind of like situation with an artist that you might be dealing with? Maybe they didn't tell you that they had done this song and that it's out there, and then you guys find out that it's being played elsewhere. How would you handle that issue?
First of all, when that Jeru thing happened, right, for me, my curiosity was like, how is it possible that these guys, as big as they are, like this TV is not, it's not child's play, right? It's not child's play. Like it's highly unlikely that they put that song in there without the permission that they were supposed to have. So now something that always worries me about the way older artists or musicians who've been in the game a lot upload their music to streaming sites is that they sign stuff without ever reading whether or not they're retaining their copyright, right? So now you've uploaded your song to streaming platforms. If you go to Jetu's song, the song that's in that advert, at the bottom of that album, it's supposed to show you who owns the rights to that song or whose publishing license is it, and then like there's just a strange name there. I think it's Avocado or something like that. And I was just like, okay, so one, they weren't in control of how that song was uploaded onto streaming sites. So now stuff like that is where a gray area starts to form, where you're not sure whether that person who says she's the originator of the works still maintained her copyright, or in the process of wanting it to be everywhere distributed, and then she actually gave up her copyright without knowing. So those are that's what I think happened anyway. So if it happened to a new wave artist, unlikely, but if it did, then I think the best way would go about it, obviously, is to just talk to DSTV directly. You'd have to send a letter. We have legal team for such issues where it's just like, look, we own this copyright. Here's where we registered it, so you can see the evidence that this is ours, belongs to us. We're the original creators. How did you come about uploading it? We want to talk, etc., and then see where we go from there. So I think, for me, I just think it was one of those things where it's like you upload that work and you hand over that responsibility to someone who essentially says that this now belongs to me, but you don't know who they've said that. So I think it's just one of those things, because we didn't hear back after she blew up on the internet and whatnot. She didn't come back to give us feedback. This is how this story ended. So I'm assuming that they got there and realized, oh, it was legit, but they just weren't involved.
They got paid. And I think
Yeah.
we are seeing a lot of, I always wonder why America, a music industry with like 100 years ahead of us, the artists are only now just starting to learn about reading the fine prints and what kind of rights they signed away. And I feel like the same issue is here in Malawi, because people just want to get famous and popular. You're willing to sign away everything because you think, you know what, with me, since I'm not doing anything, I might as well leave it for other people to exploit. But yeah, can we talk a little bit about the dangers of, I guess, desperation? Do you ever work with artists who are desperate? Like, is that like a criteria you also look at? Someone who's just eager to get rich fast, or you'd rather work with people with the slower vision? Is there any preference to to the kind of artists you'd like to work with?
We definitely have a preference. That's why I reacted when Joel was saying this is not a get rich quick scheme, because I think some artists, musicians, creators find themselves in a position where they feel like, if I don't make it right now, then I'm never gonna make it. So this song, you just have to put it on every download site. You have to give it to every person in a WhatsApp group and do this and do that. And I'm just like, yo. slow down. Like there's a process to this. There's an art to this. Like distribution is not just kuponya nyimbo pena pali pose. Like there has to be an intention behind it. Even with the publishing, we don't just, you need to register with Kosoma now because I heard they're distributing next week. Nah, let's go through the process. We know who contributed to this song. Let's get the signatures. Let's submit one Dondomingo Zage. So we want people who understand what our end goal is. If you don't align with what NewWave's vision is, we're willing to let you go. And we don't care how big of an artist you are. It's like your publishing is a mess, your distribution is a mess. Don't bother coming to NewWave. Like, we're not going to help you. It's just, it's non-negotiable at this point. Because if we don't go through things properly, then we were just delaying a future headache. You know what I mean? It's like today we're gonna, skip around due process, and it's happened before actually with a client where we don't do the due process and the song was a YouTube beat and these people came for us and we had to pay over $1,000. Like, it was upsetting, like
Are you serious?
extremely upsetting, where it's like, but we asked about this and we were in a rush and all that, so we ended up distributing without doing the due diligence, and then we ended up in that situation and we had to fix it. No one else was going to fix it for them, so we had to fix it. And then now we're really wary of, like, okay, who is the original creator of this beat, etc. So yeah, we're not interested in fast. Hey, I want this song out tomorrow, can you distribute it? I keep it. We're not interested.
I like that. I also think it shows that a lot of artists don't understand the concept of licensing from the producer's point of view. We always think the artist is the one who's doing the licensing. But yeah, producers as well have a stake in that. So still in this very same conversation, looking at the state of the infrastructure here in Malawi, you are literally the only music publishing company here. What do you think about the working systems that are currently in place that artists are using? And what would be the best ways for us to work together to carry the conversation forward about music publishing? Would love to hear from you on that.
Hey, this question is like a 3-hour topic because you're asking the person who does the paperwork. And you can ask my team, I can see some of them are here, where it's like, I'm literally always frustrated when an artist says, oh guys, I want to release an album with 15 songs. I'm like, we can't do 5 songs because like 15 songs is going to be a headache. And we're still paper based. So that's the number one problem for me, which means we're doing a lot of trusting the other guy, because unless you have, okay, there's this notion that we have amongst bigger musicians and a lot of producers where you're just trusting the main, author or performer of the song to submit that song in good faith. So you never find out, Kuri, one, is your name even on the sheet that we're submitting Kukosoma? And 2, have they given you the percentages that you agreed or didn't agree on and stuff like that? Like, did they give you anything at all? So we have cases where a producer and an artist used to be really good friends and now they're not anymore because the artist submitted the songs to Kukosoma and gave that producer nothing and gave that featured artist nothing. So because of that, I feel like that is the main problem with our current system, where there's not enough checks and balances on Kosoma's end, because they're also just trying to get through the workload, right? Imagine how many people are trying to register their songs on a regular basis for them to ensure everyone has seen the paperwork, has signed off. About stuff like that. But before, they just allow people to just submit on their own. Then their name is the only name there, the signature is the only signature there, and then that's fine. It's admissible to Kosoma. So I think that's where the problem is. And the other thing with the current system is transparency. Because one, let's say a club has a license. I hear all clubs pay the same amount, which for me just doesn't make sense. Where it's like, one, some clubs are bigger and are on rotation with music for longer periods of times, etc. So there has to be a more equitable system of how these clubs are paying for their licenses to play certain music and how often they play those songs. Aside from that, when we come to Black Media Levy and performance royalties, it's kind of like a system where we're looking at the most popular artists and then, we're giving them that amount of money, etc. But like, I think there needs to be a more accountable way of, looking at who gets how much, depending on how they registered themselves. Like the way you register your songs, because someone won't give you money if your song is not registered. I think that should apply to performance royalties as well. Like, how many performances did you have this year? Have you registered all of them? If you didn't register, I don't just get to give you money because I've seen you on, almost all the platforms, etc. So that's how it works in other industries. And I think that's where we're falling behind in like our current infrastructure and systems, because it's not digital. So everything being paper based means that you have to trust the other guy like a lot. And if we're not having those open conversations, we're scared to bring it up as a producer, we're scared to bring it up as a collab artist, that means your money is just going, you won't know where it is. And there's those challenges. But regionally, it's surprising because there's a lot of growth there, especially Kenya and TZ. They're doing really, really well when it comes to publishing. More than one, collection management organization, which is really good. This is a challenge for us here because we only have Kosoma, but our neighboring countries have tried to kind of split those to say, okay, if there's books and whatnot, that's its own thing. Musicians, that's its own thing, which is really, really helpful in the grand scheme of things. But fun fact, like these TZ and Zambia came to Malawi to learn from Kosoma and then went back to their countries and then just did it better, which is insane. But like that's how they started their CMOs. So yeah, I think that covers where we're at, where it's like paper based and you have to trust the other guy because there's no checks and balances in like a digital format where you all ensure really, okay, I've got the royalties that I wanted and I'm also on the paperwork and like all these things. So that's the challenge with the current system.
Thank you. We seem to be very good at crafting policies on paper and never implementing. I hear the same thing with Rwanda. So we have a comment from Joel. He says most Malawian artists are hungry for liquidity and they want to take shortcuts. It's sad. And shortcuts are always more expensive than just being patient enough to do it right the first time, So there's a question for you. This is from Yamiko. Remember, guys, if you have a question, you can raise your hand and we can give you a moment to ask your question, or you can drop them in the chat section. So Yamiko is asking, what is required to become a music publishing company?
Okay. So you need a license, music publishing license, which you can get from Kosoma. It was really hard when I was getting mine, so I hope it's easier now. But like even to this day, I don't have like an actual music publishing license document, like the way you have, let's say, an MRA license, right? They give you like an MRA branded, okay, this is your license, and there it is, because we were the first ones to get what I was asking for. So once you have that, it's really just about your systems having that in place, which means you need certain documents in-house, split sheets, and how you onboard artists or how you distribute royalties to your artists if you're the one collecting on their behalf. And then those are kind of really the main things that you need. And obviously you need clients that you represent. So the misconception around being a music publishing company is that you need to represent musicians, which is not the case. Like even songwriters where they don't sing but they contribute a lot to, like, in terms of writing, those can be your clients. Producers can be your clients, and then you go from there. So yeah, so far that's what I've done. And obviously on a global scale, you're then looking at registering with like BMI or ASCAP if that is interesting to you, where it's like, okay, I also want to be able to collect royalties for my clients on a global scale. Then you'd also have to register with bigger organizations like those ones, so that you're able to service your clients on a global scale. But locally, you just need the license from Kosoma and clients, and you'd be good to go.
So we have two questions from Robert and Tia. Let's start with you, Robert. Go ahead, unmute yourself. Robert, I don't know if you can hear me. Please unmute yourself.
Oh, yes.
Go ahead.
Yes, I can hear you. Okay, all right. Okay, thank you guys for these sessions. I think they are really helpful. So first of all, I just want to appreciate the work that NewWave and Vwaza are doing, especially in pushing the boundaries when it comes to publishing and licensing. I think it's really refreshing to see local players leading the way in a space. I think that has been neglected for far too long. Now, that said, I just wanted to know, are there any current efforts by NewWave and Vwaza, probably, to work with hand in hand with COSOMA and other key stakeholders, for example, in trying to reform the legal frameworks that govern music publishing and licensing in our country? Because from where I'm standing, there are still huge gaps in our system. For example, the Copyright Act is a good start, but it does, as you know, it doesn't really cover things like digital streaming, global royalty collection, and I think sync licensing in a very practical way. Because without these reforms, we'll keep struggling to fully benefit from the music that we create, that people create. No matter how much we learn or how hard we work, if we don't reform the law, if we don't push for the reform of the law, we'll keep on struggling. So I think it's very crucial that as much as we build these platforms and systems, we should also push to change the laws themselves. Otherwise, we're building in a space where the law hasn't really caught up, and that is always going to limit our growth. So in a summary, I just want to know if there are any efforts by NewWave and Vwaza in terms of working hand in hand with COSOMA and other stakeholders to reform the legal framework that guide music publishing and licensing in Malawi. Yeah. Thank you.
Exciting question. Thank you, Robert. Ntaha, you can start it off, and I think we have Joe still on the line. We can have responses from both of you guys. Remember to keep it clear and not too long, but as informative as always.
Yeah. So NewWave is always trying to collaborate with COSOMA, because like you said, we can't thrive in isolation. It's a very, very niche part of like the music business, but there's no infrastructure, and I can't create infrastructure outside of COSOMA. It has to be embedded into their systems as well in order for it to become as efficient as I imagine or want it to be. So we try to talk to them every once in a while, and like I was telling Kim at the beginning before the meeting started, like they're so tired of me. It's like when they see me coming, they're just like, ish, not this girl again with, her suggestions and her problems and her whatnot. So what I can say is my number one challenge at this point, or our number one challenge as NewWave, is bureaucracy. Because we go there, we recommend things, and it's like, wait for us to put out a tender, or wait for us to put out a call for this, or even as you're saying, making changes to the Copyright Act. If you're submitting a bill to Parliament, it either has to be submitted by a parliamentarian, Chizungu, or if it's private, like you need to have like a subcommittee and like someone to, second it on the floor, and like it's so complicated. So it's bigger than us, but we want to support the systems that are already in place. So we talk to COSOMA, we talk to the Ministry of Arts in the Department of Arts and Culture. Like we try to just say, like, we're here, we're providing this support, but this is why it looks the way it looks right now, where we just do it anyway, because we know we can't force them to make those changes immediately. But if they one day want to catch up or make those changes, then they know where to go, because we're very vocal about where we stand on these things. So I think that's the summary. That's the short answer.
All right, thank you for that clarification. So from my perspective, okay, so I work in a governance institution. So for example, as you know, there's this refugee law in Malawi.
Mm-hmm.
For the I don't know if maybe you've heard recently, there's the confiscation fund, where government is now reviewing the confiscation fund to govern how government can do with the proceeds from crime, for example, cash gain and corruption. So all along there was no law to in terms of refugee law and the confiscation. I'm just giving those as examples. So from what we learned from my experience, because we've been dealing with that, and now it's in the final stages that the government is reviewing, the best way to study it is, for example, if maybe NewWave and Vwaza, if you are able to maybe, let's say, for example, write a proposal to any of these institutions that support maybe arts, so that maybe you can hire a consultant who can write a paper where he can consult all stakeholders in Malawi, and maybe even learn from other jurisdictions. Let's say, for example, South Africa, Kenya, and Tanzania. They do desk research. They don't need to go there. They can just do a desk research. Once you write a paper that is maybe from a consultant, a very respected consultant, and then you present that paper to the Ministry of Arts, they usually take it up, because from my experience, we did that was in 2020, for example, the confiscation fund. We had to hire a consultant to write a paper, and the consultant, after writing the paper, we presented the paper to all the relevant stakeholders, and then in less than 6 months, the government took it up. So I think if we are maybe to take that approach, I think it would be very helpful if we can take that approach, I think.
Yeah, that's an amazing suggestion. And they put a call out recently, the Ministry of Arts and Culture, because they want something like that. Like they want desk research done into like the current, Copyright Act, and even all these little Musicians Union of Malawi, all these unions, like what are they doing? How can they be more effective and whatnot? So we applied for that. So we're hoping like we're gonna get it. And if we don't get it, let's hope that the player that does get it is good enough to actually be effective. Because there've been studies like, can you make an assessment and do a research of the entire creative economy in Malawi? Like people applied, they got those gigs, but we've never seen the results of that research. So it's also about when you finally get into that room, you're intentional enough. So if you don't see us pushing to do stuff like that, it's because I know that maybe right now NewWave is not in a place where we can undertake like such a huge calling, you know what I mean? But I get those requests so often, like from musicians that want more transparency from Kosoma, where they're like, can't you guys just get all of us to like sign, some document or something? There's like 100 musicians who want to know what's going on. And we could do that, but I think it's also about being strategic and timing. So, well, like there's things at least in motion. It's not like we're doing nothing, but it's also just about being strategic and seeing which players can help get the best results.
Joel, did you also want to add an element of Vwaza in regards to that before we continue? Yamiko, I've seen your question. I'll ask it after Joel.
Yeah, I think I just have a little thing that I wanted to add. So I think I've been frustrated quite a lot. I've been frustrated a lot with the way the systems work in the country. So one of the things that I've been trying to do is to work alongside, but not directly with the government in a way, or like these institutions, because I feel like sometimes you have to kind of like prove yourself by yourself and then go to them in a way. So you need them, but only like for things like, I think with working with Kosoma, for me, it's like you work with them because you need to get the license. One of the things we needed the license for was because we needed that for us to get approval on the App Store, or like to distribute music. So that's why we needed them. And I also, I think, I don't know if you know, but we also have to get a license from Makra, because we're doing like digital streaming or like music streaming or whatever. And that costs like $20,000 for some reason. And that we just kind of like hit pause on that. It's crazy.
Whoa.
But what I'm trying to say is that we have to work. I think for me, it's like we have to work, like not directly with them, build something, and then create a need from our end, or like for the people in the country. And then we can go and say, okay, this is what we have, and people are already using it because we've proved ourselves. Because otherwise, it's like you have to beg for services, and you have to beg for even to get them to do a little something. And as Nthangwanika said, it's always like this. It's like, okay, you approach them, and then people like look at you and like say, oh, these people are not doing anything. But we usually are trying, and we've been trying to get like these people to work with us. But it's like always like, oh, we're gonna get back to you, or we're gonna do this. So I'm like, okay, I think we should channel that effort somewhere else, because we can work without them to some extent, and we're gonna maximize that. But then there's gonna come a time when we have proven ourselves, and we go to them. One last frustration that I can give to you is the copyright fund that they put out. We did apply for that, but you'll be surprised to see the people who actually want it. And that's one of the things that is like very frustrating, to say, okay, why are you giving these people, and what are the projects they're going to be implementing and all of that. So I can tell you, like, these institutions or like government or whatever, they are very hard to work with. And I just don't want to have my headache around it for that particular reason. One of the goals for us is to, to work alongside them, but not directly. Only go to them when we need them. But we have projects that we're building internally, and then when the time comes, we're gonna go to them and say, okay, this is it, and you either are in or you're not. But if you're not, then we're going to, work. It's like you have to. It's like a startup classical startup, like, model of building things somehow. You get all the players in the game, you have them behind your back. So the creators, the musicians, and I talked to Daniel, I think a few months ago, and I think we're going to work together at some point. So let's say the NewWave and Vwaza work together. We also do work together. It's like the Music Association of Malawi, and we have all these creatives come together, and we say, okay, we have a coordinated effort that's going to carry more voice than going alone to say, okay, we are the NewWave, or we are Vwaza, or we are this, but working together, finding ways where we can collaborate and go with one single voice. Because if Vwaza has 80% of the artists in the country, and the NewWave is like the publishing, company that is doing that, then we have the Music Association of Malawi endorsing us, then we can go and say, you know what, you have to allow us to do this, and you have to implement the systems that we have built. Or, I think that's what I can say. But yeah, it's so hard to work with these people. It's so hard.
Thank you so much. I think a lot of us can agree with that. I think let's take a question from Tia, and then I'll read out Yamiko's question. Go ahead, Tia.
Mine is not really a question, but just a comment on what Ta was speaking about in terms of that we're still paper-based in terms of our systems. So I'll just like to share about what I went through when I registered part of my catalog with Kosoma. So I submitted the form, I put in all the people I collaborated with, all the producers and everything. But somehow they lost that data. And then instead of like the names that I had given them, they literally just put me for every single thing. So like for producer, studio, like every single thing, they just put my name. And when I was going there for something else, the guy there like asked me like, oh, like, why is your name on everything? I'm like, no, I actually gave the names. And then he's like, that's not what the data that I have says. And then I had to correct it. So it's also just a cautionary tale for people who are collaborating, for producers, to like really make sure. Because even if the main performer actually registers it right, Kosoma might actually like just mess it up because it's paper based, so they might lose the form and things of that nature. So yeah, like we really need to like actually go check for ourselves to say like how is the song registered and everything.
That's an awesome comment. Sorry, before you add into, I think a lot of producers just rely on the artist, like Nthang mentioned earlier, to say, oh, the artist is going to register me. But taking that proactive direction to go check what is under your name and what you need to do to make sure that you're registered with Kosoma, I think that's what a lot of producers need to do. But we also have the issue of split sheets. A lot of people, we are not, I think, like Robert said, if having split sheets was to become like a policy or like a law, I think it would make metadata collection for African or Malawian artists a lot better. Anyways, you wanted to say something, Ta?
She just triggered me so much where it's like, this is what I'm saying about those guys. You know what I mean? Where, okay, I've submitted the song, but you don't give me any type of document back to know if you've submitted exactly what I have submitted. Like, we don't get any type of feedback. They just give you the receipt, and the next time you're gonna hear about that song is when they're giving it royalties, if you're lucky. So it's literally like there's no transparency, there's no coordination, there's no feedback, and it's just it's traumatizing, kids. That is
It's honestly hectic. And I think the law, the research paper, and the policy direction, we should really discuss more on that and how we can use it to our advantage. I think there's a loophole though there, yeah. So we have this question from Yamiko to Yunta. He says, does the new wave need to be consulted and a part of the agreements between your client being featured on another creative project? So if my client is being featured on something, should they inform me and contact the featurer, and then do I need to contact the person who's featuring my artist? How does it work for you guys?
100%. Wherever your artist has contributed creatively, they must, one, be credited, and two, if that's the agreement, be compensated. So for me, like my clients are now at a place where they don't even bother. Like they don't want to talk to those featured, the musicians they've collaborated with. They just tell them, oh yeah, someone from NewWave will come talk to you about that. So once they've been featured on the song, their expectation is that, one, I'm going to go make sure that they're on the Kosoma split sheet. I'm going to go make sure that they've been credited on streaming platforms. I'm going to go make sure that they've been sent their splits. So literally, they don't even have to think about it anymore, but you have to think about it as a music publisher, because that's still part of the income that your client earns from work that they've done.
That was very clear. Yamiko, I hope you're good with that response. If you'd like to know more, feel free to reach out, yeah? So I want us to continue the conversation. There's a few more aspects we're yet to know about. The issue of IPI numbers. I don't know if NewWave issues those yet, but I know that Kosoma takes 4 or 5 years from literal experience. I remember we had secured sync placement for MTV's Viacom for a couple of Malawian artists, like 4 years ago or something. And ever since, I have been asking for their IPI numbers. Can you imagine having your song approved for use on Viacom's networks and you not being able to cash out on it or add that to your resume because you don't have an IPI number? And Kosoma, the entity that's supposed to issue that out, they keep saying they have to apply to be able to issue out IPI numbers from another entity outside of Africa. So as you can see, this is the infrastructures and the kind of environment that we're working with. So to you, Nta, do you guys deal with IPI numbers? These are supposed to be like a unique ID to songwriters and producers, and it makes sure that your music is tracked back to you. Do you guys deal with these IPI numbers?
So NewWave doesn't deal with IPI numbers, like you said. It's like a fingerprint, right? So as soon as that IPI is there, everyone knows, okay, so this person worked on this song, or this belongs to this person, and we don't issue those out or
How
advise.
comes? I feel like you guys should totally take up that space, because we're leaving so much money.
Actually, someone has been like forcing us to take that up and like start issuing those out and whatnot, because I think they have members like you who stress them out about stuff like that, because it's like that's a huge opportunity that you weren't able to pursue because you didn't have that. They should be in a position to do that. And it's not even just that. So there's also something called a CWR, which is now under CISAC. So you also need that in certain spaces where I have an opportunity for a client, I need that code, and Kosoma doesn't issue those out. It's like, guys, what's the point of what you guys are doing? So we don't yet, but like for me, I always advise, because the reason is, if NewWave does it, I have to register under BMI or ASCAP as NewWave, which is a publishing company, right? So the costs for that are different from if a musician or a producer does it as an individual. I think it's even free on like BMI. So I always just recommend to say, look, we can help you through the process and you pay us a consultation fee. So it's not something we offer, but you can come to us and we can help you, get that set up so that if an opportunity comes along, then you do it. But for me right now, as NewWave, my people are here, they'll tell you that we are just like really so concerned about the state of publishing in Malawi, where it's really our focus at the moment. So I can't say that it's even in our next 3-year plan, not really, but like it's out there, it's an option, and we're able to assist you if required. So it's an option, and it's good if you really want to pursue ads and sync licensing, because now there's certain musicians who are like very they're in the know. They're registered on platforms where they can get, discovered and then end up getting a deal. So there's no point in you putting your music up on a sync platform if you don't have an API. So you might as well just register for it on your own. Don't wait for Kosoma and that 4 years, 4 months, whatever. Just do it on your own, so that if you're putting yourself or positioning yourself in that way, then at least you have everything that you need on ready to.
Thank you. That was pretty awesome. And I just before we continue, my network is acting funky. I don't know if I cut you off. I know we have a hand raised from Yamiko. So you know how people are only concerned with the issue when it directly affects them. I feel like a lot of us will wait until things hit the fan for us to be concerned about it. For example, I have an IPI number. There were 3 or 4 other artists from Tanzania and another African country who had IPA numbers. So we all lost out on the deal because the Malawian artists did not have IPA numbers. You see what I mean? So when you look at this from a bigger picture, it's like a lot of us Malawian creators were missing out on world creation because of our ignorance and because other people don't think it's urgent, Anyway.
Yeah, that's a different study. So I think also something that then informs, like I always say this about business, right? Like for me, it has to make business sense for us to introduce something as a service. So we always make a case. So for right now, you just made a case for me to say, okay, what if, like we went to, Egypt with Teddy, and he also worked on a joint project with, so many other artists, and like imagine if he couldn't do that because we didn't have that thing, then that would have made sense to me, like, oh, all my clients need to have this from now on. So it's like I hadn't met a challenge yet, and you just presented one to me where it's like, if this opportunity finds me tomorrow, that means my clients are going to miss out on that opportunity because they don't have this thing. So now I realize the value of it, despite working in the Malawian environment where it kind of makes me feel like I don't need it, so it's good. This is why these conversations are important. So I hope Lovemore and Danny are taking notes to say we might need to look into that more seriously.
We can talk more on the side, but I really feel like there's a massive opportunity for you guys to take up space there with where the industry is going. Okay, so before we give the space to Yamiko, we have Robert. I think you should talk to Nta afterwards. He's talking about racking up over 200 songs, and people have been sampling those songs, and he's not sure if those songs were properly registered. Yeah, he's basically left the money on the table, Robert.
Let's go collect your money.
So, Robert, make sure you speak to Nta afterwards, yeah? Please?
Yes, I will do that.
Awesome. So over to you, Yamiko. You can go ahead and unmute yourself.
I just wanted to chime in a little bit and just also say something that I've noted, Gudi. Sometimes also we're putting too much honors on Kosoma to do everything for us. I think they've kind of shown, Gudi, they're not really so understanding on these things that are going on. So in situations like how you've talked about the IPI number, I don't know if I have mine, but I'm registered on. Oh, I do. Okay, I registered myself on BMI, so I didn't even know that you can go to Kosoma and ask them for that. It's you just have to sign up with BMI and they're going to give you your IPI number, because we're dealing with international things. So Kosoma, we already know, cannot really get royalties from international market. So I think we should also look at, okay, are we dealing with international players? If we are, we can't go and put pressure on Kosoma to provide us something. We should now look, okay, online, YouTube, how can I get this rather than going to the office just to like find an excuse for something, I don't know. But then I think I've noticed that a little bit too much. Yeah.
Go ahead and tell after you.
Yeah, no, that's a very, very valid point. And I think that's why Kim was kind of stressing that it's an option for someone to start that as like a business. Because look, at the end of the day, creators want to create. They don't want to think, let me YouTube and find this. They just need to work with people they can trust, who they know have their best interests at heart at the end of the day. One of those institutions is meant to be Kosoma or your music publisher or your PRO. So these are just opportunities presenting themselves. Not everyone will be in a position to be an independent artist or wants to be an independent artist. So it's very important that we're having the conversation and kind of just highlighting that there's a need for this in this country, so that other people who don't want that option of handling everything on their own or being hyper involved in the business side of things have options or people they can rely on.
Nice. All right, got you.
I dig it. But the other issue with this thing, I think, is like we're giving the money away again. You know, the opportunity, we're not circulating the money that we're paying for. For example, if you have to pay for an IPI number, that money is not going to be utilized in Malawi necessarily. The one that is benefiting from that is that country that is issuing out the IPI numbers. Do you know what I mean? So when we're talking about making money as African creatives, we really need the systems and infrastructures in place to make sure that money is circulating also locally. For example, the Nigerian industry apparently made 52 billion. I don't know if that was the figure in terms of streaming. But when you really inquire how much of that circulated locally, you find that not a lot of it did. So I always think we have an opportunity in Malawi to really make money because we don't have any majors who are influencing our industry. So we could really make money that benefits the small creative business owners, if that makes sense. So anyways, let's keep it moving. Now that we've spoken about licensing, we've spoken about publishing, we all have a basic understanding of it. How does knowing this now change the way that an artist is writing, the way that a producer is putting together sounds, or the way that someone is presenting their music? Could you give us some tips on how you feel Malawian and African artists should now be approaching, be it their songwriting, their production, in relation to music publishing and licensing?
I love this question. I think also for me, like when, I was reflecting on this, it became apparent to me that I'm even seeing those changes in our current clients, where it's like, one, who you work with. There was like, a culture where, my clients would jijiriga. As soon as this artist comes, yeah, let's work together. This artist comes, yeah, let's work together. But now it's like, splits matter. The conversation matters. Like, am I going to be credited? Am I going to get something? What percentage are you offering me? And then they're willing to work. So that's already number one on the list, where it's like, now they're very, very picky, which is like business sense. It has to make business sense to me. Like, it's great. You get in the studio, you're vibing, you record a song, and then you leave without having the conversation. It's really, really risky. They then go to Kosoma, they submit the song without you, or like, it's up on streaming platforms and you're not earning a dime from it. So that's like the number one thing that I've seen, Kuri. Now with the knowledge of like licensing and publishing, it's like I need to be more picky with who I'm working with. Number two is how they then keep like information on how it's even submitted to us. It's like, before it would be like a random name that the producer just put on the file and then they left it there. But now they value metadata. They know, okay, this is what NewWave needs in order to do their job well. So even when they're sending us their songs or their documents, they already know, I need to know, author, composer, producer. They differentiate between the beat maker and the producer. They know that if someone was just laying vocals and they paid them cash, they can mention them as a credit, but they don't need to mention them on the split sheet. So those are just some of the things where now even documentation is much more seamless with, people who are in the know of publishing and licensing, where they value like, okay, this has to be well documented so that everything, the information, when I need it, I can find it. It's not just like, oh, Ndiwumbukire, who was there in the studio that day or whatever. So that's like also number two, a very important point. And thirdly, it's where and how you register your work. Even when you register your work, you're no longer in a rush to say, I need to do this immediately, because they know, we need to get all the information right, make sure all parties agree and are aware. These are the splits. Have we finalized on the agreement? Are there not going to be any issues? Did we use a sample? Have we gotten permission to use that sample so that we can finally release the song, etc.? And royalties don't chase you forever. So that it's also like the flip side of it is just never feeling the need to register a song, where it's like, guys, this song came out Kali. It's been a year. Why haven't we registered the song? That's like something that I've also seen, where now understanding what's at stake. We had a client where like EP came out, we're just sitting on it, not registering. They're distributing royalties. They didn't get anything. And then they came to us guns blazing. And it's like, we can't submit work to Kosoma without your signature on it. So we sent you stuff for signing. You thought, good, it's not important. And you didn't sign the paperwork. We didn't submit paperwork because we need your permission. So, there's those kinds of things where now, trust me, that artist would never not sign a document that we send immediately, or wherever they go, even if it's not with us, they're going to make sure, there's a document to sign. They've signed it because they realize royalties are not waiting for you forever. So I think once you understand like those three things, like who you work with and when you need to submit your royalties and how you name things and how you document your data, I think that is the essence of like creating a conducive ecosystem for everyone to make money, even the little guy, So yeah, that's how I'd say I've seen that develop. So even bigger players in like bigger industries, Nigeria, Ghana, Kenya, they're so particular about such things now. Could even when Western artists are sampling their work, they now know, this is not an exposure trap. I don't want to work with you for exposure. What am I going to make from this collaboration? What am I going to make from you sampling my song? So yeah, those are just some of the things and the growth I'm seeing in the sector.
Question from Yamiko. How does one resolve a conflict where artists belong to different distributors for DPs and paid royalties still on the table until you register?
That one is a really, really tough one because I've only experienced it once, and like it pissed me off so bad because it was like, why are you even registered with that random distributor? You know what I mean? I started blaming the musician. Like, what are you doing all the way over there? Just come where all of us are at DistroKid. So with that, it's challenging because then I think the final solution is that you have to trust the person you've collaborated with to remit your royalties to you. Because I don't think I've seen any other solution. It's different if the song is yours and like Mina, it was registered on a platform where it can be sent to you and then you do content ID, like that's different. So for me, I saw that in like a clip, right, where someone was saying, you upload your part of the song on your distributor and then content ID it so that it automatically brings the royalties back to you. And I was like, that's kind of crazy, but I like it because it's like, how else am I gonna be certain that I'm going to get my money? And it's like, just content ID your part and then get your money. And I'm like, I mean, if it works, right? But like, it just sounded so complex, and I really feel sorry for people who maybe have to go through that a lot, where they're already registered on a different platform and then they can't really, automatically get their splits online. We had to move one of our clients from like TuneCore to DistroKid because we're just like, please don't give us a headache. So that's also another option. It's not complicated to move your entire discography from like one platform to another. But if you feel that you're experiencing that problem a lot, that's like one of the options. I've never tried the content ID one where you just upload part of a song. So that's advice, cautionary advice. Take it with a grain of salt. But like, I think for me, number one solution is like just convince whoever to move, or like, there's also the option where you register on the other platform without ever using it to distribute, so that at least you just have an account, so you can open like the cheapest option they have, like whether it's like the single musician one where it's like $20 or $15, so that you just have an account on that platform and you're able to be automatically added to splits. So you don't use it for distribution officially, but you have an account on it because maybe it's affecting the way you get your splits. Like, I think those are my recommendations.
Thank you so very much. I distribute with Content Connect Africa, and I remember someone was trying to upload one of the collaborations that we did, and they blocked him. They sent him a message to say, you're gonna have to send us an email from this person you're saying that you've collaborated with, so that we know that it's real. So I had to write a whole email to send to him, for him to send to them, for them to, upload it. So I think there's a lot of interesting processes for each distribution.
Yeah.
One more question for you. How can a music producer protect themselves from being left out? You, Nta, said that you have to make sure your artist is on split sheets. How is anybody accessible to such information?
This is a tricky one. So like having a bulldog just helps. Like, you really just need to So you know how everyone says, no, it's important for everyone to have a manager. Like, manager is a big word, but you need someone who is capable of standing up for you in situations like this. Because I get that it's tricky, right? That's where you eat. So they say, don't crap where you eat. So it's kind of like that. Conversations like this are at are like high risk conversations where if you come on too strong, the artist gets pissed off, they never want to work with you again, etc. So I think as you're recording, like, you know, you know your clients, the way you work, the way you relate to each other, you need to be able to assess, could am I able to have this conversation on my own, or do I need someone to represent me in the conversation so that it doesn't feel like I am trying to swindle their money, or I'm being ungrateful for the work that they offer me. You just kind of have to weigh it depending on the person that you know, and just say, look, I just want to make sure all the checks and balances are there. You're not paying me up front. I'd like to get royalties. This is how much I'd like to get. And always be, your demeanor should show, Woody, it's a negotiation. You're not demanding 30%, 50%, 40%, 15%. Make a recommendation, a suggestion, and tell them that I want to have a conversation about this. And if they agree, when you agree, then it's just about transparency, which is not difficult. Even in your personal relationships, this should be an existing concept where you've agreed on something. If two are agreed, they should just be able to show you, oh yeah, ndabanga, this is how it looks like. And also, if you are registered with Kokosoma yourself, you should be able to go there and ask for, like, you know, which songs are registered under your name, whatever, in the system. They should be able to come up and show you. So those are just like my recommendations on that. But it's a conversation. I always tell people, Guri, osama oba, like, it's a conversation. And if you see Guri, they were not too open to it, then you can always say, you know what, I want to talk to NewWave, or get a friend, a mutual person that you can talk to, and just have that conversation. And like, I'm always insisting that producers themselves need to be having these conversations and build systems that protect producers. Because I've been asking this question, like, I've never heard of Producers Association of Malawi. Maybe you have a group chat somewhere, I don't know. But there are things that are affecting you directly that you're not discussing and coming up with solutions for. So you need to be having those conversations and building those systems that protect you as producers, and, like, you know, you're able to just be answerable. I mean, musicians are able to be answerable to you guys when they know, if you go to that studio, splits kumenego, and don't be afraid to be that guy. Just be like, this is how I do business, and people should know you for that. If you lose certain clients, good riddance, it's fine. You're gonna get better ones who value doing business and working with you in a professional manner. So yeah.
Oh, yes, I love that. There's another follow-up question. Does this also apply to songwriters, lyricists? I know there's a massive case of Malawian songwriters who are not registered with Kosoma. They just give away the songs to some of these famous artists for free. So is it the same principle for songwriters?
Definitely. And like, same advice I offered, where you're not distributing music because you're just a songwriter, but you could open an account on those platforms and just like be registered. At least you're getting your cut from splits. And also Kugosoma, when they put you on the you know, on the credits, and they put you in the splits, you're able to get your cut. Because if you're not registered, you're not gonna get that money. So you register for that, you know, accountability sake. Okay, I'm a registered songwriter, I know my rights. So when you're going to submit this song, you know that I'm part author. Please make sure that, one, you credit me, and then you also include me on the splits as discussed. So just protect yourself that way.
Thank you so much. And also, Yamiko, to answer you, you can just Google split sheets and create your own, where you're showing people exactly, you know, who's contributed what. I think we should have a simple conversation on that.
The simpler, the better. Don't do anything too complicated. Like, just as simple as possible, as straightforward as possible. Good evening, Google. We entered the information wrong because we were confused.
It was complex. Right. I like that. There's something else that someone asked earlier. What happens to royalties when they're not collected? Actually, there's an estimated 2.5 billion globally of unclaimed music royalties, and these just sit in royalty black boxes. So even this includes from organizations like the Mechanical Licensing Collective, which currently is holding $424 million in unmatched royalties. So as you can tell, there's so much money that we as creatives leave generally. So if you don't claim your royalties, they're gonna get chowed by someone else.
Yeah, they're gonna come up with a fund like what Robert was talking about. Because since people don't want this money, what should we do with it? And they'll
Imagine.
start giving us grants. So you better go get your money.
I love that. Thank you so much. I think I saw a hand, man. Who was that?
Harmony, I think.
Harmony.
I just wanted to add, like, not necessarily a question, but I thought I should just add something. I think we have got a bigger problem when it comes to artists being paid their royalties as expected right here in Malawi. So I just wanted to encourage Vwaza and these other guys, to try their NewWave, to try their best to to do what they can, because I do understand that the system is like it doesn't favor like the artists mostly, even the Kosoma stuff. It doesn't favor like small artists on, but it only favors the big artists. So what they're trying to do is very nice and important to artists. So I just want to encourage them to go on with everything they're doing, and I'm wishing them all the best as an artist. And I know that one day every artist will smile, and everything will turn out good. Thank you.
Thank you, Harmony. That was sweet.
Thank you. And like one of like my something that's really on my heart is like we should be able to have at least like 200 clients. You know what I mean? So it's really also just the pressure on NewWave to like how can we grow our business intentionally but as quickly as possible, because now when you focus too much on like perfecting everything in the moment, you're delaying the progress of growing or helping the industry at a larger scale. So we've really been having those conversations of like how can we onboard more clients at a time, etc. So we're working on those things, we promise. And like that, I really appreciate those sentiments, and I know my team also is here listening, so I hope they heard that as well. But the work you're doing, it matters, very important to certain people. So yeah.
One last question. I'm super curious. We have a lot of old Malawian catalog songs by, some Malawians who've passed away, legends really. So what has it been like for you trying to go back to work with some of those artists and let them know that they can still make money from their music, even though they might not be active in the industry? Like, what's that process been like for you guys?
Chaotic, because one, I think it's really just for them, they're coming from an era where, they would make like 4 million at a time, the OGs days. So like when they look at these streaming platforms, my $2, you are like, how are they going to help us and stuff like that? So it's been challenging. We've tried to speak to a couple of players. We've been approached by like, people we could only dream of working with, and like the conversation kind of just fizzles out. Maybe one, because they work differently from us. Like with younger musicians or clients, we could get really far digitally. We'll have a Zoom meeting like this, we'll talk, we'll get somewhere. But like those musicians want us to go sit and have tea and like get to know us and know that they can trust us, etc. So it's been a huge challenge, but the desire is there to kind of understand more and get the royalties more. Like I've been getting crazy requests, people who've written like hit gospel songs. Kuri, that song has been reproduced over 100, 200, 500 times, and it's like, I want the money from that song. And I'm like, oh my goodness, where am I gonna start? So the desire is there, but I think it's now an educational gap, because they still really heavily depend on Kosoma to kind of give someone a stamp of approval. It's different from people who can just search up NewWave or maybe have been following the journey and they know, okay, these guys, we can trust them to do this work. But with those guys, if Kosoma doesn't recommend us to them, I don't think we will make as much progress with them as we can. So that's really the roadblock. I would say the biggest roadblock that we have right now is that, to say Kosoma is not open to say, okay, if we open up new wave to even like the older generation of musicians, then we're really going to have a problem, because that's royalties dating back gari gari. So those are like the challenges that I have seen. My team is here, maybe they can pitch in on that, because I mean they approach us differently. We've all tried to engage different musicians in that respect, but like even there's these pages on streaming platforms, Malawi Music or whatever, and they're uploading Skefa Chimoto songs and Grace Chinga songs and like all these legends. And it's like, do those guys know who their songs are on those platforms under those pages? Like, are there agreements on the back end? Even just like the curiosity in me wants to know, are they aware? Are there agreements in place? Is everything good with them? Even if they're not my client, I would just want to know that those things, their checks and balances. So yeah, experiences differ, but like I think to summarize NewWave's experience with that generation of artists, it would be that where they're just mistrusting. The person that we came really close to working with on a serious level was Thomas Chibade, and unfortunately he passed before we could really develop the conversation far. But I met him when I was getting Tawanda's license, when he was recreating the song. And he's like, this is the first time anyone has ever asked me to license my music. People are supposed to pay for this. So it was like a whole conversation, and it was educational, but it made me sad that he was then at the end of his life, and he didn't even know that like he could have been making money from those songs in so many other ways other than it being played on radio and him getting bookings. So it's very unfortunate. And that is happening and has happened to so many of our legendary musicians, that it's really our responsibility now as like the younger generation and younger musicians to really educate them on such matters, and also to utilize that that music so that they benefit from us using it or recreating it. Because now we're too busy trying to sample amapiano. I'm not hating, but I'm just saying, we have our own local sounds, our own local musicians that we can uplift and like push forward the music that was trending back then by giving it a modern and vibrant sound and reviving it. So yeah, I could ramble about this all day. But
oh my God, it's like you're just, every time we have these conversations, you unlock new topics. Like for this one, it's like unlocking the revenue in Malawian, or how would you put it? Unlocking revenue through sampling Malawian music,
yes.
Like that.
Heavily needs to be done. Like we really need to lock in on that. It's unfortunate. Like you hear a lot of inspiration from like Western music, Nigerian music, Southern African music, but our own musicians gave us so much to work with that it upsets me when I don't see like as many samples, as many new creative spins. Even like the passing of Lucius should have motivated like so many of us to like recreate some of his hit songs and whatever, like so that's just a conversation for another day. But the option is there, and it's through us providing or using that option that we're gonna open up that generation of musicians to like, oh yeah, so this is another way that we can go about it.
Any final words to artists, producers, and songwriters in regards to music publishing and licensing before we close off?
Please be as intentional as possible. Even if you think this song is never going to go anywhere, it's actually that song that will surprise you. So don't take anything for granted. Be faithful in the small things and the big things, and you will see a difference in your own career when you start being intentional with your music publishing. It seems like a very, niche, useless thing that we're doing, but trust me, this is how so many creators globally survive and live off their art. It's not from being the star of the moment or having all the hit songs or always performing somewhere on a stage. It's in those little percentages that add up to like something different. So I think that would be my last word to everyone. As always, if you need anything from NewWave, we have learn.newwave.mw. You can go learn about it there. My team is here: Daniel, Mercy, Lovemore, Kelvin. You can reach out to them whenever on socials. You can DM us on socials and we'll try to help where we can. But yeah, thank you very much for being such a great audience.
Fantastic. Remember, everyone, you don't leave your money at the table. If you're walking around, remember there's $2.5 billion floating away somewhere of unclaimed music royalties. Don't let that be your money on the table. So thank you so much, everyone.